Hey everyone, welcome back to Cine&Tech. My name is Stan, and today we are looking at the Nikon ZR. So I just got these in a couple of weeks ago. I know I'm a bit late to the party. I did pre-order them, so I'm finally getting them in. I've had a few weeks to test them now, put it through its paces, so I know what I like, what I don't like, and also the type of footage that you can expect to be getting from this camera. I currently am shooting this review on a Nikon ZR with a Blazar Remus 45mm. So this entire review will be shot on a ZR, as well as all of the B-roll, and every single shot you see in this video will be shot by a Nikon ZR. So without further ado, let's get into the review because I'm super excited. But first, I want to show you guys some footage that I was able to get with the ZR before we hop into the review. Let's go. Okay, so now that you guys were able to see some of the footage that you can expect to get from this camera, which, by the way, it looks amazing. The red code RAW is extremely easy to work with. It's very comfortable for me since my main shooter is a Red Komodo X. Fits very well within the pipeline, and I'm able to use a ZR as a B or a C cam and make it match up with other Red cameras pretty well. So the first thing we're going to do is go over the pros of the camera. First and foremost, my personal favorite pro is going to be the addition of this 4-inch monitor. I know every single person talks about how nice having a 4-inch monitor, but having a monitor that can articulate, that's 4 inches, pretty much minimizes or gets rid of the need for a top-board monitor, technically. We'll get into that later because it is a con. There's an asterisk there, but yes, the monitor is a beautiful monitor, and 9 times out of 10 when I've used this, I have not needed an onboard monitor, which is great. Keeps the rig small, keeps it light. The 4-inch screen, amazing. It makes everything super easy. It gets up to 1000 peak nit brightness, so that makes it really nice when it's sunny outside. The touchscreen is super responsive. It's genuinely probably my favorite onboard monitor of any sort of mirrorless or cinema camera that I've ever tried. So my second favorite thing about the ZR is actually the Z mount. So I have a Red Komodo X as my main shooter, and that came with an RF mount when it released, and there is an option to get a Z mount. Now, why do I say that Z mount is one of my favorite things on this camera? And the reason why is because Z mount is so much more versatile than RF mount. If you have an E mount camera, a Sony camera, this probably won't be like much of a change or much of a shock for you because E mount is actually very adaptable to a lot of other lenses. However, RF mount, which is what I'm used to on my Komodo X, doesn't have as many options to adapt lenses because of the flange distance. The Z mount, I believe, is 16 millimeters of a flange distance, which means you can adapt Sony lenses and you can adapt other types of lenses a lot easier onto the Nikon ZR versus something like an RF mount. So for me, Z mount is a great mount. I really, really, really love this mount, and I'm very glad that it's more versatile than RF mount because RF mount does become a pain sometimes. Obviously, it's Nikon, so they were going to do a Z mount. I'm also super glad that they're switching their Red cinema cameras over to Z mount as well. It gives you just a lot more flexibility and ability to adapt different types of lenses a lot easier. So that leads me into my third favorite thing about this camera, which has to do with the color science. Now, obviously, Red color science, if you've never used it, it's amazing. So now this is technically R3D NE. It's a 12-bit format versus 16-bit on my Red Komodo X as an example. Red RAW is extremely versatile, very easy to work with. The look that you get from Red RAW without needing to color grade and just throwing on a simple Rec 709 conversion already makes it look phenomenal. But my favorite thing in terms of the Red RAW is that you can shoot different formats of Red RAW. So when I first was researching the camera and looked into it, I was worried that they would only allow you to film in the R3D format in 6K, which is not the case. I forget every single option right now, but you can film in 6K 60, 6K 30, 50, 25, 23.98. You can also film in 4K up to 120, all in R3D. So you don't have to film in the entire 6K. The bitrate is extremely, extremely high for the Nikon ZR, and there's not really much you can do about it, at least not right now. So being able to shoot in R3D, but being able to shoot in 4K being able to shoot in lower resolution while still keeping the R3D is great. So those are my top 3 favorite things about the ZR. I mean, it's really just a great camera and it produces a great image. I could sit here and talk to you about all the really small things that I really like, but those were my 3 things: was the screen, Z mount, and the R3D internal that you can also change the resolution of. I think that's totally great, and this camera produces some phenomenal images. But with that, we'll get into my 3 least favorite things about the Nikon ZR. So my 3 least favorite things about the Nikon ZR. So number 1, and this might seem small to some people, but for me as a cinematographer, it's quite a big deal, and that is that the media, or the CF Express card, is actually the same slot as the battery. So if I take out the SD card, or sorry, CF Express Type B to be accurate, but there isn't a slot for an SD card in here, it's the same port as where the battery goes. Now, on most professional cinema cameras, this is not the case, because most of the time you have your camera rigged out with accessories. Sometimes it's on a tripod, a shoulder rig, and you don't want to have to take the camera off the rig to be able to take the card out. Usually it's on the side, you flick a button, and then you can just pull out the card. That is not the case on the Nikon ZR. So that for me was a huge, huge, huge downside. And it was one of the things that almost kept me from getting this camera. I'm glad I still gave it a chance. And there are other cages and different mounting things that actually work around having the battery slot also be the CF Express Type B slot. So it's not too bad, not as bad as I thought, but it is a pain, especially if you have it rigged on something, whatever you're doing with it. If it's hard mounted somewhere and the bottom of the camera is covered, you're gonna have to take it off to take the memory out, and that's just what it is. So not a fan of that. Hopefully they can put it on the side of the body like most cinema cameras for the ZR Mark II. But with that being said, my second least favorite thing about the Nikon ZR is that there's no anamorphic D-squeeze internal. So back when I was talking about the pros of the Nikon ZR, I mentioned the screen and how you basically never, never, ever need a screen on top of the ZR because you have this beautiful 4-inch touchscreen. Well, if you want to shoot an anamorphic, as of right now, as of the date, I believe today's March 18th, 2026, they still do not support anamorphic D-squeeze inside the camera. So if you're shooting like me on a Blazar, which is what I'm shooting on right now, and that's what I shot a lot of the test footage on, you're going to need some sort of monitor to de-squeeze if you want to see what the image is supposed to look like. You can get away without a monitor trying to focus, but it becomes a pain, becomes very hard, and you're going to get frustrated when stuff is out of focus because you can't properly view what the anamorphic is supposed to look like. So I'm sure they can fix that with the firmware update. I don't think that should be too difficult, but it's really a bummer that Nikon didn't include the anamorphic D-squeeze internal already. I mean, a red Komodo is $3,000. It's $800 more than the ZR now with the price cut, and that has internal anamorphic D-squeeze, and it's only $800 more. I do know that they're 2 different style of cameras. This is more of a mirrorless style portable camera, and the red Komodo is more of a normal style of cinema camera. But I'm sure they'll fix that with a firmware update. I know a lot of people are complaining about the lack of anamorphic D-squeeze within the camera. So I agree with them. They should add it, and I really hope Nikon can add that in a firmware update, hopefully. Hopefully that's not something we have to wait for the ZR Mark II to get. Other people might disagree with me, but my third least favorite thing about the ZR is that I believe it needs a cage in order for it to be hand-holdable and usable. Now, this is a Tilta basic cage that is on this Nikon ZR, and I'll make a video about it later. It's going to be a short video, but it's a really great cage, I think. It just adds enough grip right here on the right that the Nikon ZR was missing before that really makes it feel comfortable, and I'm confident when hand holding it. Without the grip, when I was holding it, it felt very skinny and there wasn't the hump that I'm used to here. I do like that it's a very sleek design without any cage. If you do want to mount it on top of a car, mount it from a big tall rig, you know, clamp it somewhere, that does make it nice. But for any sort of hand holding or run and gun, I did not feel comfortable holding the ZR without the cage. I was worried every single time that I was holding it that it was going to slip out of my hands and I was going to drop my investment. So for me, the ergonomics as a run and gun cinematographer and like an actual commercial narrative cinematographer, I wish this had a bigger grip. And I also wish that the actual rubber was a little bit more texturized. It does have some knurling and little textures inside of it. If you have a really big zoom lens, I mean, good luck trying to hold this with no cage. So those are my 3 least favorite things about the ZR. Overall, I think the ZR is a phenomenal camera for the price. I mean, it's $2,200. So you really can't get anything cheaper that can produce this type of image at this price point. Again, Z mount, super flexible, R3D looks amazing. The 4-inch monitor is great. No anamorphic D-squeeze, but I'm sure they can fix that in a firmware update. The shape of it, I guess that's personal preference. Me, I do not like the shape of it without some sort of, like I said, a cage or a grip. So thank you guys again so much for watching. That is my final thoughts on the Nikon ZR. I know this was kind of like a quick and dirty review. I'm much more of a real world type of person where I don't like looking at charts too much. I like seeing cameras out in the real world shooting under real working conditions. So if you guys like the ZR, let me know. Let me know what your thoughts are, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.